What law school did you attend, and where did you place in that class? And the other question is, could you quickly, I think we all
I think I probably have a
Reagan.
much higher IQ than you do, I suspect. I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. In the first year in law school, I decided I didn't want to be in law school and ended up in the bottom two-thirds of my class, and then decided I wanted to stay, went back to law school, and in fact ended up in the top half of my class. I won the international moot court competition. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only need 123 credits, and I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like, Frank.
There is one less candidate in the race for the presidency tonight. Delaware Senator Joseph Biden dropped out of the hunt today, saying the disclosures about his plagiarism in law school and his exaggerations about his academic record made it impossible for him to continue.
I take no joy in saying this, Mr. President, but it's time to drop out again. Because of my obvious political beliefs, there's going to be people who doubt what I'm about to say. But I never want to see a president removed from office. While it's sometimes necessary, I just think it's bad for the country. But sometimes circumstance forces us to do things we don't really want to do. You see, if the press had been doing their job, this man never would have made it out of the primaries, much less win the general election. But they've been covering for Joe Biden for a long, long time. Let's watch again as that reporter tells us why Joe Biden left the 1988 election.
There is one less candidate in the race for the presidency tonight. Delaware Senator Joseph Biden dropped out of the hunt today, saying the disclosures about his plagiarism in law school and his exaggerations about his academic record made it impossible for him to continue.
Exaggeration is certainly one way to put it. Saying you got 3 degrees when you only got 1, saying that you graduated at the top of your class when you were in the bottom 10 people, those are certainly exaggerations. But there's a much better word for that. He lied. But did you see the candy coating she put on it? For his exaggerations. The press covering for Joe is nothing new, even when he's being blatantly racist.
Senator Biden, you and your campaign have had a number of occasions to correct or clarify things you've said relating to race, including your remarks about Senator Obama being, quote, clean and articulate, your comment about Indians working at 7-Eleven, and recently to the Washington Post in which you spoke about race while describing disparities between schools in Washington, D.C. and Iowa. Do these gaffes or misunderstandings, or however you would characterize them, indicate you're uncomfortable talking about race, or are people just being too sensitive?
That's from the 2008 debate where they were discussing 3 issues that had come up in just the few months before this debate happened. 3 examples of Joe Biden being kind of blatantly racist. Oddly enough, with all of the focus of race in the 2020 campaign, none of this really came up in any meaningful manner, and it sure as hell wasn't brought up during the debate. Hell, they didn't even bother to ask him about the racist things he said in 2020.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
That's right, Joe Biden deciding whether or not you're black based solely on who you're going to vote for. Surely the debate moderator in 2020, the year of George Floyd, would ask him about such a ridiculous fucking comment, right? Right?
The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years?
Mr. Biden, you say that something this shithead over here said made you want to run. Mr. President, you're just a dick. How are you going to deal with race relations? The rest of the race part of the debates is absolutely asinine. The closest they come to holding Biden to any kind of standard is in the second debate where he's asked about his record with the crime bill, but otherwise he gets away with everything. Donald Trump was asked to distance himself from the Proud Boys, something he's never been affiliated with. Joe Biden wasn't even asked about his own fucking words. And certainly there's other examples. The same press that was hungry for Trump's blood over the Ukraine extortion scandal had no problem with Joe Biden admitting, bragging about extorting Ukraine.
Providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch.
Truth be told, I really don't care about this. It's just another excellent example of the hypocrisy and double standards that the press has. But that's really kind of beside the point of this video. The press covering for Democrats kind of not a new thing. But something different happened in 2020. 2020 was a little more sinister.
Barack and I think it's a right for people to have bad health care. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure.
These are but 3 examples of many that show Joe Biden was in a serious state of mental decline during the election. But if you got your news from any mainstream source, say MSNBC, CBS, ABC, the New York Times, all of this was dismissed. If it was even covered, it was dismissed as a stutter. A stutter that Joe Biden didn't get until 2020. Now, there is a story that goes back to 2015. It talks about Joe Biden's stutter and how he met a boy in 1994 and sent this boy a letter telling him, look, I know you have a stutter, but you can beat it like I did. And guys, that shows that Joe Biden has had a stutter his whole life. That has never been part of his public persona until it became convenient as an excuse for why he can't speak. And we all know we can trust anything Joe Biden says. He would never lie or exaggerate.
The only way to spare more pain and more loss, the only way, these millstones no longer mark our national mourning. These milestones, I should say, no longer mark our national mourning.
And here's where it starts to get scary. He actually won the election. The cover-up worked. This is our president. And while sure, what we see there is a stutter, let's say, just for argument's sake, that the stutter story isn't a fucking bullshit made-up nonsense piece of crap. Let's say it's actually real. Let's say that he overcame this as a child. He's been in government for 47 years and the stutter was never a problem. So if it's a problem now, it's because he's in mental decline. What other parts of his mind are in decline? The other night, Don Lemon hosted President Joe Biden on a CNN town hall where this happened.
Folks, the rest of the world's wondering about us. Those of you who travel abroad, not a joke. Not a joke. You asked, when I went to this G7, all the major democracies, I walked in, and I know a lot of them because of my role in the past. And they walk in, and I said, America's back. And they go, I'm serious, heads of state. I give you my word as a Biden.
Your word as a Biden? We covered that at the beginning, sir. You're going to have to do better than that.
Said, are you really back? I mean, how can we believe you, Joe, but will the country ever get it together?
If this story's true, this next video must have scared the shit out of the G7 countries.
Whether with them, Prime Minister Modi, President Ramaphosa, President Moon, be just a minute. And the President of South Africa. And the President of South Africa, as I said earlier. Oh, you did? I certainly did.
America's back, and this time, it's senile.
The various shots that people are getting now cover that. You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Yeah.
Forget for a second that the President of the United States just gave absolutely false information. While I do support the vaccine and hope people get it, there's no guarantee that you won't get COVID with it. Pfizer, which has the best success rate, was only at like 95%. There's still a 5% chance you can get it. Forget that for a moment. Did you hear what Don Lemon said? Listen again.
Hey, you're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Yeah.
Did you catch it? He said, yeah. He agreed with the president. The president came out the other day and said that people spreading false information on Facebook are killing people. Meanwhile, the president just spread false information, and a major news figure over from CNN agreed with him. Now, I haven't seen what happens after this, so it's very possible that Don Lemon went on to correct him. But his first reaction was to just cover for Joe Biden and agree with him. But the next part is truly hard to watch. It's easy to laugh at all the Biden gaffes and stutters. But if you pay attention, you're watching a man in decline. That's not funny.
It's underway, just like the other question that's illogical. And I've heard you speak about it because you always, I'm not being solicitous, but you're always straight up about what you're doing. Yeah. And the question is whether or not we should be in a position where you are, why can't the experts say, we know that this virus is in fact, it's going to be, or excuse me, we know why all the drugs approved are not temporarily approved, but permanently approved.
That's not a stutter. That is a man who lost where he was in mid-sentence and was desperate to find it. This is not a joke. I don't say this lightly, but our president needs to be removed from office, whether he steps down or we use the 25th Amendment to get him out of there. The rest of the world is watching, and I have no doubt the recent aggression from Russia and China has a lot to do with thinking our leader is just too weak to do anything about it. They may have a point. President Kamala Harris is not something I want to wake up to. This is a woman who was rejected by her own party. This is a woman who launched her campaign to epic media fanfare, who raised $40 million and spent almost all of it, and still had to drop out of the primary before a single vote was cast because even her own side hates her. Nobody wants discount Hillary. But as I said earlier, sometimes you have to do things you don't want. Joe Biden is in obvious mental decline, and he's in no position to be president. And frankly, the media of this country should be fucking ashamed of themselves. Sure, the DNC should too, but the media has an obligation to tell people what's going on. And instead of doing that, for their own political reasons, they used a senile old man who is losing his faculties because they didn't like Trump and they thought Joe Biden had the best chance to beat him. In my mind, everything we watched with Joe Biden from the beginning of his campaign through today has been nothing but elder abuse and done for nothing more than political partisanship. These people should be fucking ashamed of themselves. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up this one. If you'd like more insight, make sure you check out Monkey in the Morning. Follow me on Twitter so you can figure out whenever the hell it's on, because it's never at a specific time. But thank you so much for watching. I'm the Ranting Monkey, and I'll see you next time.
The only way to spare more pain and more loss, the only way, these millstones no longer mark our national mourning. These milestones, I should say, no longer mark our national mourning.
Our choices make me sad.